All right, let's call the meeting to order at 9:04. And Deanie Mallory is not here today. Russ Todd is hoping to call in. He's in Houston, but he's not sure he's going to be able to.
Right.
So at this point, should authorize. I guess we have two people at this point who could be authorized. So
I believe it's his.
but there are two spots.
Gotcha.
So you're both authorized, and if Russ shows up,
I will step down.
Okay.
I think it's his turn.
do you have a record of whose turn it is?
Ed, I think, was authorized to vote at the special meeting. Yeah.
So it's your turn.
Okay.
So
Right.
if Russ comes.
I'm out. Yeah, got it.
The first item on the agenda is approval of the September 22nd special meeting minutes, which have been circulated. Is there a motion to?
I'll make the motion to accept.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Public comments? None? So we move to the Secretary's report.
Okay, so we have 11 issues and projects that we're monitoring in the historic district. The Ferry Road Sidewalk project still, I don't think, has been started. It was supposed to start in September 2023. That was the second date that it was going to start, but it's not happening.
Okay. How long has this been?
I thought I read it was out to bid.
Yeah, that's what I thought, in this month or next month, going out to bid.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for like a year. It's been going out to bid. So I hope that will actually happen. But, it is what it is. So we still have some issues with 6 Lime Street, 38 Lime Street, 57 Lime Street. That's the Children's Learning Center, their renovations. That'll be
Ongoing, yeah.
51 Lime Street. We're still awaiting today for changes to the fence. Looks like it was put back the way that it was. 76 Lime Street, they're removing some chimneys. 84 Lime Street, that's Lime Academy of Fine Arts. The signs, their new signs are still hanging over the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody's filed a complaint about that, but I think in order to get that fixed, zoning works on a complaint basis.
Well, we have mentioned it to zoning, but if there are complaints, that certainly would help.
Yeah.
Prompt action, I think.
Martha, is the paving work at Lime Academy all just like for like?
As far as I know, yes. We haven't gotten any.
I just noticed the perimeter is
The white.
painted white,
Yeah.
and it really
jumps out.
glares. Yeah, it really jumps out.
I haven't heard anything about that.
Could you check with them, because they at least need to.
Yeah.
This is within the district, right?
Right.
They at least need to file a like for like.
But it's not.
Was it white before?
Not like for like.
Wait, what was white?
The
Perimeter of
Of
the
the-
little perimeter ridge of the entire parking lot is now
border
white
of the
instead black.
driveway.
We don't have, if
If you
it's
drive
paint,
by, you'll.
if it's paint, we don't have any authority.
No.
Well, if it wasn't painted before and it's painted now, does that make a difference?
The statute just says we don't have jurisdiction over paint color, Is it something that would not normally be
Because
painted?
it was previously asphalt, now it's paint.
Paint over asphalt.
It wasn't painted previously.
Where the
paint was
curb
new.
meets the road, is that what it is?
It's the curbing around the perimeter of the driveway.
The entire, yeah.
The whole, so you drive in and there's the parking lot and then the sidewalk that walks around it. The whole thing around the parking lot is like bright white.
It's really very noticeable. It's a very noticeable change. I don't know if we have authority over it, but it's very noticeable.
Well, I have this.
I mean, maybe it's a safety thing, but
Maybe it is.
I'm going to have to, I didn't bring my copy of the state statutes. I brought a portion of it, but not that provision. So let me read what it says. But my recollection is that we do not have jurisdiction over paint color on structures. And it's a structure, and it's paint color.
But it wasn't previously painted, now it is painted, so that's a change, so it's not a like for like, maybe?
Well, but the like to like, I think, refers to
Just the structure.
material, location, size, things like that. But let me double check.
Just to check.
Martha, we do need to remind them that at least, no. So they're not doing anything to the asphalt. Is that
They
right?
replaced
That's
it.
been
It's
replaced.
all been replaced.
The whole structure of the asphalt has been replaced.
So that at least requires a like for like.
Yeah.
And, okay.
They resurfaced the parking lot?
Right.
Okay.
Of course, the plow is going to take care of that border.
Yes, it's going to last one winter, maybe part of a winter. Okay.
Can I comment that on the children's center? The rendering makes the building look much further back from the road than it actually is. It's really fairly close to the sidewalk.
Right.
We also have Florence Griswold Museum signs. They have permission to replace some of their signs, but that expires in February next year. And then 97 Lime Street, the garden shed, which hasn't started yet. And 100 Lime Street, caretaker's cottage renovations, and also the storyboards. And as far as the plaque program, I'm still working on getting a firm date for 62 Lime Street.
Did you, have you checked that the web page updates have been made, including getting the forms posted more prominently than they have been?
I will go over that again and make sure that the last time I checked, the front pages were good, but when you click and you go to the pages behind them, there were still some inaccuracies there. So I'll go
If you
over
could
that.
follow up with that would be great. Okay. Is that it, Martha?
That's it.
All right. Co-chair's report, most of what I have to say should wait for new and ongoing business, but I did want to note a couple of things. One has to do with the Florence Griswold signs. I did double check spoke with the President, Deborah Moore, and she said that the Wee Ferry Village this year would not have a sign in the historic district. The issue of the fence, which they raised when they were in early this year, placement of the fence, is not currently on the front burner. They've been overwhelmed with other issues such as HVAC unit for the old museum. But they're now reminded that that was an issue they said would be addressed. The other thing I wanted to touch base with y'all on now is the date for the special meeting to look at or continue work on the sign revisions to the sign policy, because I know Carolyn has to leave perhaps a bit early today, and I circulated dates for the people who replied. The one date that works for everyone is the 23rd of October, but I haven't heard from Deb and I didn't hear from Russ.
That's okay with me.
Okay, so Ed, I apologize. I know you're going to have to phone in, but at least we can get everyone's here. Everyone, I think, here. Russ's schedule is such that I don't think he knows necessarily weeks in advance whether he'll be in town or not, but he does make an effort to phone in.
What time will that be, John?
So that's 9 in the morning, and the 23rd is, I believe, a Monday?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And
I'll make sure that we can get a meeting room for that.
yeah, that would be great.
And is this the number to call in on?
Yes. It's also on the agendas.
When they come out?
Yeah, Martha puts in the telephone number and the access code. So
Great, thank you.
just in case there are any changes. So my other comments will wait for new and ongoing business. And next up, actually 4 minutes early, but Edie is here, so we might as well start. Edie, come up. Edie Twining, you all know, is the chair of the Halls Road Improvement Committee.
Hi.
And the historic district, of course, has jurisdiction with respect to structures in the district, but also has a range of authority to either provide information or give advice or recommendations concerning matters outside the district that may affect the district. And rather than read the whole statute, just for the record, I'll note that the reference to that additional authority is Chapter 97A of the state statutes, Section 7-147C, subparagraph J. Just for the record, so you know we're not doing things we're not supposed to be doing. Anyway, I thought, Edie, maybe we could just start by asking you to give an overview of where things stand, but comment especially on anything with respect to the Halls Road improvement or pedestrian bridge or trails that you think might affect the historic district.
I don't think any of it directly affects the historic district. I think it perhaps adds to the quality of what we see in Lyme. Whatever we do would clearly be something we want to make sure you guys approve of. We don't want to come up with ideas that you think are nuts. I know that when we had our presentation on Saturday, the AI landscape person introduced a bunch of graphics that were like, a young girl thinking this would be fun, and it had nothing to do really with Old Lyme in my mind. I think we would take our cue from the Flow Grizz more than anything else in terms of the types and quality of aesthetics that we would do for any signage on the bridge concept. So I'm going to turn this off. So, yeah, I think basically pretty conservative attitude about things. I think what we see on Halls Road now really has very little to do with the aesthetics of the town. One of the main things that we've heard feedback from all along from Halls Road's projects is make this feel more like it belongs to Old Lyme, which is part of the reason we had the design review committee concept with our proposal for an overlay. That before you go building anything, you have to talk to the CEO and the committee, the design review committee, to make sure that the architecture makes sense in this town. So, you know, we have weird porticos that have no sense of, you know, put them on Dunkin' Donuts, and they're just buildings that have nothing to do with our town. And I think I've even heard several years ago from zoning that they have no way to really gauge what someone's building. They don't have any way to say this works or doesn't work. So that review committee would help bring it back to something that has more to do with this town. So, you know, we're aiming to help be more historical looking than, you know, put up neon signs and flags and crazy stuff. It's clearly, if the zoning overlay goes through, it would be more, I don't want to say restrictive, but more in keeping with the town's look and feel. Because that's what we all want, I think. I mean, most of our surveys, the thing that the EDC did, the survey through Advanced CT, that was another loud and clear message. Make stuff look like it belongs in Old Lyme. Don't put in, you know, no big boxes, no blah. You know, that's clearly the idea. And, you know, our town center was here on Lime Street for 300 years, and it was a mixed-use situation, and that's kind of, you know, I think when Halls Road was first being considered back in 1960, the idea was make sure that it's successful by basically shutting down a lot of new opportunities on Lime Street, keeping it historical, and making sure that, you know, all the commercial business went to what was happening back in the 60s, which was a car-centric, you know, drive to a shopping center, a strip center idea. I think that era is closing. I think that people want to walk down a street, they want to run into community, they're isolated by their computers, sitting in their house, getting out and being a part of the community is something that people are sorely missing since they're working remotely, shopping remotely, doing all these things where they have no community. I think that's part of our purview to look to answer that need as well.
Just for the record, and I'll comment that I ran into Edie at the open house and asked this question then, but on one of the plans that was filed, I believe filed, certainly circulated, at one time it showed that the Halls Road district would encompass the museum property out to Lime Street. Mm-hmm. Is the museum property or any part of it going to be included in your revised proposal?
Yeah, so the museum property became part of the Lime. I'm trying to find my district map here somewhere. It used to be separate parcels, and then they expanded the museum to include 2 different residential parcels. And when the district was drawn, you know, back in the 60s to show the commercial district, it went right up. There's a line that's exactly 300 feet from the center line of Lime Street. That district ends there. And we aren't changing any of the district boundaries in the overlay. We're staying within that original district.
So it would not overlap
with
the historic district?
Yeah. It doesn't currently, and it wouldn't in the future.
And how about the plans for a sidewalk or trail extending out to Lime Street. Is
Yeah,
that?
that is something that we have very little jurisdiction on. It's DOT property that goes out there, and, you know, we submitted, what I've got here is our application in 2021 for the Lot SIP grant, which is what DOT oversees, and it's money that would come from them to do all the sidewalk work, which we applied in 2021. The most we've heard from them was when we asked for a special meeting with them in the end of August, and they hadn't even looked at the application yet. So as you can imagine, things at DOT don't move very fast. They're very slow. Even the new sidewalk crossings they put in this past summer, I think those were on the books for at least 8 or 10 years. And nobody even knew what they were for. I mean, it was like, it goes to no sidewalk. And I think people thought, oh, we're beginning to do sidewalks. Well, that had nothing to do with the Halls Road project at all. But I can show you, this is part of our proposal from LOCSIP, which in order to get any access down here, because there's a steep hill on this side of Halls Road, okay, so this is Lime Art Association, and the culvert comes here that goes underground to go out to the Lieutenant River. I don't know if are you oriented here?
Yeah, we're
oriented.
Okay. Because some people don't read maps and they're like, what are you doing? So the suggestion from BSC when they put this proposal together was to do a boardwalk here and just a sidewalk that would come to this point here. And the rest of the sidewalk would travel down. The part of the reason the bridge project is being promoted at this time is because it's one of the few things we can do in town that can happen under our jurisdiction as opposed to DOT. And it's also something DOT is very unlikely to even consider because it's not on their property and they don't really care about bridges and things like that that aren't there.
Is
This is Lime
Is
Street.
this showing,
Yeah,
where
this is-
is this the same
Yeah,
stopping
so-
point in that diagram?
No, this is Halls Road.
Okay,
Our stopping point in our diagram is way over here.
okay.
So
It's-
either these the existing sidewalks and
There are no sidewalks.
There are no sidewalks.
I think it's you're walking on the breakdown
The
lane.
only sidewalk is across the
And
bridge.
so all this
across
in the
the
yellow would
Lieutenant
be
River.
DOT?
Yeah.
There are no
So wait,
sidewalks.
this is
And you're saying
the
if
museum,
DOT
Forest
takes care of this, they would
No,
also.
Art
take care of
Academy.
the Art Academy,
I'm
but,
sorry,
and this
There are no-
is, that's Halls Road.
no sidewalks.
No.
I thought there was,
Walk on the
like,
breakdown lane.
No,
I thought there was
there's
like
a,
a raised and it was black.
no.
And that goes all the way to the
That's
bridge.
down here, that happens, but it doesn't, it sort of
Oh,
peers
okay, so
out.
this is
Yeah.
breakdown, okay, that's the shoulder.
So we're,
But is this considered part of your plan
It's-
that you're submitting?
it's part of the, yes, this is in the LOCSIP application.
Okay.
It's a suggestion, but again, the DOT has their own ways of doing things. So other than making the suggestion and having it drawn on a piece of paper, that's about as far as we can go. I mean, we're asking for sidewalks all the way down Halls Road, so.
Is the grant for the sidewalks, or the sidewalks are something that the town has to cover?
No, the town wouldn't cover this. The grant is what is trying to cover
sidewalks.
this. Sidewalks, crosswalks, curbing, let me think of the other thing, lighting, landscaping,
All from the lot six?
all the
Okay.
way down to, 156.
What is the surface of the sidewalk?
I think it's just asphalt. This stuff was gonna be, there's trails over across the river on the bridge area, but it's mainly asphalt, but it would be sanded asphalt in our
Would there be a
project.
sidewalk continuation?
Yes,
here?
there will,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
The
I think
sidewalk will continue, so
Yeah.
when you get here, you'd have an option to continue on the
Exactly.
sidewalk or go across on the trails.
Right, right. And I don't know if you've ever walked across that current bridge, but it's, I think, 30 inches wide. So it's
Yeah.
really not safe, which is what brought about this idea of the bridge. The bridge is, it's an alternative, but we think because of the draw of being able to stand on the bridge and look at the river, it might be nicer than standing on a little 30-inch piece of walkway.
So it's not, the bridge is not, it's primarily for safety, or it's
Well, it's for
primarily
everything. It's to bring people down to the river to enjoy the one major asset our town has, which is the Lieutenant River. I mean, our access to Connecticut River is from Ferry Road, but this would be so central that it would be a much more inviting parkland for people to be in.
What is your, and I know we get into the realm of guesswork here, Edie, but what is your best guess as to the timetable for
This
doing
happening?
this sidewalk, bridge, little park area, and what would be your timetable for other improvements, assuming zoning gives the go-ahead?
When we worked with Rivercog to get this application in, and they said, look, there's lots of people ahead of you. They do have large amounts of money to apply to things, but it's all on, a rotating, first come, first served kind of basis. So we put it in 21. We may not get an approval of sorts till 25. It might have various different things they want to do or don't want to do. You may not see construction till 26 if all goes well.
Right.
So that's one of the problems. I've heard people say, do the sidewalks first. Well, if someone wants to pay for it out of the town's money, we could try for that and get some kind of permission from DOT, but I doubt that would happen.
Right.
It's really DOT. You're not allowed to touch their land, and unless they give you permission to do something. Like they did in our meeting with them recently, we asked, if we wanted to have a town green in this area that's at the far end of, at the other end of the bridge section, right in front of where Andy's Deli is. There's a big green over here. We asked, could the town use that as a town green? And they said, well, if it's not something we need to have for roadways, we could consider that. So I think it's actually right here. It's not much of, but it's that green,
I can
always mowed by the town and kept clean.
Right.
So that in that kind of instance, they might actually give us an easement or do something that makes it the town's jurisdiction as opposed to the DOT. It'd probably be an extension of this property we got from Deep. So this is the DOT's land goes like this.
Right.
It's weird,
I just wasn't sure. And DOT's land and town land and deep land, I'm not sure. I'm confused.
Well,
Okay, so
this is you
because
explain.
the bridge used to be coming down here, this used to be part of Route 1. Then Deep was for some reason given this land to take care of, which they did nothing with. And then they gave it to the town 2015, I want to say.
Right.
And they were thinking about doing a bridge and other things like that. So, but the DOT's land is along here. It's a weird cut.
I see.
But they own this little green right here.
And
DOT owns
and
that.
Yeah.
and
That's what I was
the
confused
land
about.
right next to
Yeah.
the
Land there and this?
Yes.
And then for the other side, my understanding from my chat with
Right.
Edie on Saturday is that this little triangle, which
Yeah, it
is
actually
where
goes
the,
up
where
right
the-
up to the
where
abutment,
the bridge would enter, this would be the easterly end of the bridge.
Right. By the
This
Hangry Goose.
land is this little triangle would,
Yeah.
is currently DEP land, but
I
the
see.
DEP apparently is willing to transfer it to the town.
Yes.
The quid pro quo being that DEP wants a fishing pier.
A fishing pier and some more parking, yeah.
And some what?
Parking. So we're able to put in, if we get the DEP land, we can put in 4 or 5 parking spots right here.
Is that town land that you
It would
come
be,
on?
so if the DEP gives us the land, then we can put it on our town land.
I got it.
And then all of this land where the sidewalk would go, where we would certainly have direct authority back for 300 feet, but also advisory authority for other parts of the sidewalk. That's one of the things highlighted in our statutory authority.
Yes.
This is all DOT land. Are there any and this is anywhere on Halls Road, any public buildings scheduled? Are you envisioning a
private land.
restroom center or a...
The most we're expecting is to be able to put in some bus terminals, not terminals, but,
Shelters?
shelters.
Sheds sort of things, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about restrooms?
We have no property. We have no plumbing, electrical, no property that belongs to the town.
Portables? Portable,
Would you have to use portables?
like they do at Smith Neck?
We're not expecting to provide any kind of
Facilities.
restrooms.
But if it's a park, it might be obligated, right? Like Smith Neck has portable.
Yeah, although the existing 2 town parks don't have any.
Isn't there some that...
Nothing on the Village
like-
Green, nothing on the
No,
Sill
I
Lane.
meant the 2 on each end of Lime Street.
Oh,
But if this is a new...
Haynes Park does.
I don't know what
Right,
the
Rogers
requirements are for
They have
new
buildings
parks.
that they...
Well,
It's a good question. We have not considered that at all, but, it's basically a trail. It's not really called a park, but it's a wooded area that you can walk through, so
I
don't know that that's a requirement
Russ Todd, who
to it.
is not here, sent me a list of questions he wants me to touch on, but let me back off and see if anybody who's here and physically has questions for you.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to, I'm not quite clear on the timeline, so I'd like to go back to that. Edie said some people have said, why don't you just do the sidewalks first? Because that was a big consideration initially, as far as my awareness, just as a private person, so, unofficial. But my understanding was that there was a safety consideration about kids walking back from school.
Yes, there is.
All the way along here and including along the bridge, and that we needed safer sidewalks, and with safer sidewalks, we'd like more attractive sidewalks, so there would be some landscaping and some sidewalks. That was just my, hearsay
that was the wish.
understanding.
Yep.
So, would it be possible, is there any way that, since the construction of much of this would have to happen later, is there any possibility that, given the safety concern, that could be constructed?
Unfortunately, the DOT is a large place that only looks at their things when they're ready to look at things. The good thing was when we went and talked to them in August, one of the people on the group that we spoke with asked to see the lot strip application. So that means they've never even looked at this application. You can't do anything on DOT land without their approval. And safety is not the only thing they look at, unfortunately.
But have you, or has the town, I guess it would be the town, attempted to go back to them and say, we need you to, fast track?
I mean, we're following their requirements. We don't get to say, but we count and we're important and we need safety streets, We're just not allowed to do that.
I don't know how it works.
Have you talked with Eric Knapp about how to get things done at DOT? He's had some experience.
Yeah, Eric Knapp understands the procedure. The BSC, all along, like when they designed any of this stuff for the lot zip grant, they made sure they showed that it had bus stops and it had, multimodal opportunities, which is one of those buzzwords. So they have bike lanes and have sidewalks and crosswalks and flashing lights to do the crosswalk. They followed every procedure you're supposed to follow to get DOT to approve what they're asking to do. There's not they talked to DOT multiple times. We've just recently talked to them to try and get on their radar and also ask questions for the town to understand. But they have their own schedule. And I think even if there was somehow to create a lockstep application 6 years ago, that doesn't mean that, 6 years ago there was no engineer on the board, there was no one that was drawing any of this stuff or considering what it should look like. So it's, the town takes time and then DOT takes time, and it's a frustrating process, I have to say. I mean, I would love to see the sidewalks be the first thing we could do, because that would make sense.
Yes.
But what makes sense and what you can really do is not necessarily a possibility.
Is the trail primarily a pedestrian trail?
It's a pedestrian trail, and it's a bike trail up until 2 points on either side of the bridge, because the bridge has to be 8 feet wide. And if you were to ride your bike across a bridge, it would have to be 10 feet wide. But we don't have room for that, and fire trucks to get down to the water for a well. So we have to provide them 12 feet, and then what's left over is 8 feet in order to construct and put the bridge on there. Which also means the way the bridge lands is south of, it's not centered on the abutment. It has to allow the trucks to go up on the north side of the abutment.
So they need 12 feet.
They need 12 feet, yeah.
How wide is that?
The wideness is 22 feet, but everyone's like, well, you got 10 feet left over. Well, you can't really put in the abutments and stuff. The stone abutment is a big, wide, 2-foot stone structure, and you can't really, you don't want to mill into that structure. We're building a new pier inside of that stone structure, because we don't want to get involved with the river and more permitting issues and all that stuff.
No, I was just thinking that it could be a little unsafe if bicycles were going across the bridge.
Yeah, we don't think that makes sense anyway. I mean, if a few people are standing on the bridge looking at the river, which we hope they will do, we don't want fishing, and we don't want bikes speeding by on the river where people are stopping. They could ride up to it, but then get off their bike and then
Walk it across.
Yeah. So it'll be 10 feet wide on the boardwalks that can happen towards it, but...
Can I go back 1 second to what Carolyn was saying about the sidewalks?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to DOT, I don't understand the process, because I've never dealt with DOT. But like, are you showing them this whole thing saying we need the sidewalks? Like, in DOT's mind, are the sidewalks connected to a project that's happening in 2026 possibly? Or is there a way to segment out the sidewalks as a current safety issue? I mean, I don't know if that would be a town thing, but do you know what I mean? It's like, does DOT bog this down because it's a big project that doesn't need to be?
I mean, the sidewalk introduction is probably the biggest part of the project for them. They've got a 3-lane road, which will stay that way. Then they have no curbs, they have no lighting, they have no sidewalks, and no crosswalks other than the ones that they put in.
Right,
but they don't have anything on the books that we've seen for future work on Halls Road besides those sidewalks they just put down.
What, Edie, is you signaled that the 30-inch current width of the sidewalk across the bridge was not really...
It's supposed to be 5 feet.
That was my question.
It's supposed to be 5 feet, so, by putting in the bridge, you allow a much safer crossing there. Sometimes people stand on that bridge and fish or crab, which is illegal, but they do it. Just like they will probably try and do that on the bridge too. But
so any new sidewalk in the historic district that connected on would be 5 feet wide.
The new asphalt sidewalk would be 5 feet wide.
Yeah. And these are all code things that we don't really get to say. But is it like 6 feet? It's plenty. There's ADA. There's all this kind of stuff that you're.
Yeah, I know. I think the Flo Grizz artist trail is 4 feet wide, so that's why I was interested.
Yeah, but it's not a public road. Public sidewalk.
So there's absolutely no way to put in sidewalks expeditiously. It just can't happen.
Not that we've been told by experts.
The town paid for it. Could it happen, or does it still require the same interval of?
I don't think it's just town. I think it's also the DOT looking at the plan and approving it and saying, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. Like, I thought there should be a stoplight by the post office and a crosswalk there. not allowed to do it because they're not public streets, they're private driveways. So there's all these things like that in there. They're so stupid. So you could put a crosswalk there and have a pedestrian beacon, which is a flashing thing when someone's trying to cross, but it's not a stoplight. So there's one, I think there was one down here. But yeah, there's just like one after another. And that's why we worked with the BSC, who understand the rules and regs of the DOT, to help, us provide a set of concepts that are actually buildable within the framework of what the DOT will do or not do. So, I mean, their original mission was to get cars from one end of the world to the other as fast as possible. They've now come up with this idea of complete streets, which is talking to the idea of safety and pedestrians and bikes and people more than just cars, which that's a big change for the DOT. They never, maybe 20 years ago, they were beginning to think that was not a bad idea, but I mean, I don't know the whole history of the DOT, but I do know that this is a new concept that BSC helped advise us about, that we're looking for complete street compliance. We want to have everything available to the town people who want to use this road. It's not just to get cars from one exit to another,
A sort of related question, but does any of the current bridge project depend on land or access to Graybill's property, or is it all?
Graybill's? Yeah, we've been working with Graybill.
And what would because I've seen, just when I'm having lunch, I see surveyors there a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and that was mainly our AI people doing that.
Oh, okay.
And what, let's see, originally Jim was on the first Halls Road committee. So he liked the idea of the bridge, and then he at one point suggested we make a path along the river, which really he wanted a boardwalk that didn't get on his property, and we were like, we really can't afford to do that. And so we suggested just a sand path that went up to the flow bridge, and then he said, I don't really want that running right in front of my property. So he does have an easement or a fire access that goes through his parking lot, and that could become a walkway up to the float bridge. One of the things that we were very careful to do is his handicap parking is down that road that goes to the abutment. So in order to accommodate keeping that roadway there and the right amount of turning radius and stuff, we're actually putting, if this is the asphalt, the grade drops off very quickly right there in a lot of places. It drops down. So we're going to put a boardwalk that has pilings that will extend over that drop, so that the boardwalk is not on the asphalt.
I've lost track where the drop-off is, towards the river?
Well, there's a culvert in there. Maybe I can get the drawing.
Yeah, south of on the east side of the river, but south of Graybill's parking lot.
I didn't realize he owned that. So
Yeah.
that's where the Hungry Goose is?
Yeah, I had thought the bridge and walkways would be entirely onto this little DEP.
It'll still be on deep land, yeah.
Oh,
So the deep property runs, this heavy line here is the part of the deep property, like this. This is what deep owns. So we can keep the asphalt where it is and put this boardwalk. There's no green space there. I don't know why they colored that in, but the boardwalk will be butting right up along the asphalt, and it'll have pilings to hold it into that bank so that it doesn't, if you tried to build straight out of there, you'd be in the water, or down the water, you'd be in the poison ivy.
But it's not wetland.
Well, no, it's not. What's happening is at the Lime Art Association, there's a stream there.
Yes,
And there's a culvert that it goes into and goes underneath Halls Road. And it comes out right here. And this is a big swale, and it's lowland, and the culvert comes out there, and like in high tide, that whole area is full of water. So that's why we put the bridge south of the, not south of it, but on the southern end of it to allow for this is the, this green line is the fire access. So this also won't be open to driving anymore. It'll just be emergency vehicles. So the fire trucks can come in. This has to be softened, but the fire trucks can come in and go down to here, and they can get 2 trucks end to end, which, we worked with them for a while.
And that circle on the west side of the river?
This is answering to
the fishing pier?
Fishing pier request. And right now, this is all getting eroded by the fishermen tromping around in the mud over there to get down to the bank. And I think this is not a bad idea to provide a little more protection for the bank. The way this happens is the bridge lands, and then it's still elevated higher than the ground level. So it's a boardwalk that goes down 30 feet, levels off for 6 feet, goes down another 30 feet, right, goes to a landing, and then hits the grade after that.
I mean, right now, as you know, north of the bridge, where the old Bow Bridge embankment is commonly used for fishing or driving.
I know, and that's why.
Would that be prohibited?
You could still fish down there, but I think giving them something that's a nicer place to fish from might be appealing to them.
We were looking over there, and this water was pretty shallow.
Yeah, it's a tidal river. They're crabbing and fishing from here too, but they're in the mud. This is Phragmite. About this much of that is all Phragmite, and then it gets
Is it
hard.
deeper up here?
No, this is all marsh, and this is owned by the land trust, and they don't want anybody doing anything up there.
Edie, there was once a plan that somebody told me about to include kayak rentals south of the old bridge abutment. Is that still contemplated?
The problem with kayaking is, I don't know if you've ever kayaked, but to get in and out of a kayak in open water is a pretty difficult thing to do. Yeah. You got to be able to put your feet on something and get out. So right up on 156, there's a big launch for kayaks, and it works beautifully. And then also Smith Neck Landing has another place that's very easy for kayaks. This just doesn't present itself well for kayaks. However, there's been people asking, could we just have boat landings for canoes and rowboats and little motorboats, which we're considering. So, there's all these rules about that too. Like to have a boat launch, not a boat launch, but
like a dinghy dock?
Yeah, like a little floating dock. You have to have it ADA. So to do ADA, you need a big ramp, and it has to all be flat and flush, and it's just one, and then it could end up into the channel, and if you're in the channel, that's not allowed. So
one headache at a time.
It's a lot of requirements. I mean, as a kid, I used to row my boat up to here and tie onto the abutment and climb up and go down to the shopping center.
You now have the little landing at Hangry Goose for its customers, but I'm not sure that's ADA compliant. Anyway, other questions? There are a couple issues that Russ Todd raised that I wanted to ask you. Let me do that, and then other people can chime in. We're obviously spending a lot of time with sidewalks, both because the extension may be in the historic district, but also because one of our bits of our authority is to quote unquote render advice on sidewalk construction and repair and street improvements that are not otherwise under the HDC's control where they affect historic districts. So it raises the question of compatibility between the HDC end and your end, and raises questions about volume of traffic. Anyway, some of Russ's questions are that's background to his questions. So, he's asking whether between the currently owned little DEP triangle down into Lime Street, do you anticipate that your plans would include any of the following proposed items? Wayfaring or other signage, lighting, trash cans, benches, railings?
Okay, so you're talking about...
Really on this DOT strip.
We're stopping right here.
Okay.
In the deep land. We're not going any further.
Okay, with signs
We
or
can't,
lightings
really.
or anything, so it's really whatever DOT.
Yeah. I mean, if we had signs, I mean, there might be a sign right here that says River Bridge or something like that. You know, there might be some wayfinding in here to get you over the bridge as opposed to following this path here. There'll definitely be signs before you get to the bridge to get off your bike and that you're not allowed to fish on the bridge. I don't anticipate any of the sort of cutesy shit that we saw on these boards. I mean...
That's a quote from...
it's not us, I used to design for children's spaces. That would be great for that, but this is the town. So
Right.
Any wayfinding would be very similar to probably what you see at Float Grizz, which is, blade sign on a post, just very basic, I mean, there might be some historical information that's up near the bridge that talks about the Bow Bridge and the industry that used to be on the Lieutenant River, building boats and merchant boats and sea captains. I mean, we can put all kinds of stuff like that in there, and maybe along the long road that goes all the way back up to Andes on the west side, we might have some informational type of graphics there. But again, it would be all to try and promote stuff about the town.
Right. So any trash cans, benches, railings, things like that would be...
I don't think it would be... Yeah, it wouldn't be really appropriate to have it next to the entrance into the Hungry Goose. That's...
And certainly not down...
No, we don't... That's not within our jurisdiction. We wouldn't be able to touch that.
Russ asks, are there any other items not shown on the plans that will become part of the Old Lyme Lieutenant River Trail projects? And if so, what are they?
Stuff that we haven't shown. I mean, specifics about where the trail goes on the west side of the river, that's still to be figured out. I don't really like the idea of putting boardwalks in that go over a lot of water. I'd rather use boardwalks as access from the main roadway trail down into that river, down into the park down there, the wooded lot. But no, I don't, we tried to include whatever physically needed to be there. The signage is still up in the air, so. I mean, the one thing I can point out is when and if we get responses from DOT about this, I think we should make sure that if we have any kind of meetings with them, you guys should come and talk about what you want.
Well, we certainly, for the 300 feet, have a direct say, and again, an indirect advisory capacity with respect to stuff that funnels.
And I think the guys should be there. I mean, I don't know that process yet. I haven't gotten there yet. But if there's an opportunity for the town to have any say in what the DOT thinks they want to do, I think,
Have you given any thought, and it's just outside Halls Road, but well, I guess some of it's at the end, right at the end of Halls Road, to with respect to signage, revising the mess that currently exists at the intersection of Halls Road and Lime Street?
Yeah, I mean, that's so hard because it's all individual entities, you know.
The town-
churches, the 500 extra signs. I know that that's something that Dave Kelsey's been really adamant about trying to do something about. He did manage to get rid of a few redundant signs, and all those newspaper boxes that used to be at the commuter lot. But
The zoning regulations, it's interesting, contemplate one wayfinding sign with lots of individual placards, which, depending on the size, could be worse than what's there now, but conceivably it could be a way to...
Yeah, and I think
things up.
probably the DOT has its own sign program that they follow, where they say, well, you got to have 3 signs, because if you pass one, you don't see it the next. I have no idea what it is. I've never gotten into that with them, but you know, they may have their own sign program that you have to comply with. So, but all the other individual entities like churches and Rotary clubs and Lions Club, all that stuff, it's piled up there. It's, you know, there is that one sign off the exit 70 bridge entrance into town that says "Welcome to Old Lyme" and going this way and that way. It's a little more organized, but it's not any DOT type of signage. It's just town.
Well, any other issues? I've covered Russ's questions, I believe. Any other questions? We've got a captive audience here.
Who do you envision as the demographic that's going to come and use?
I think we got, the main thing that started all of this was kids trying to go to the commercial area in town. So there's that. There's also the Art Academy folks going into town if they don't have cars. But I think that, you know, in times of like the Midsummer Festival, people would definitely be using that. You know, there's times when you can have more public events that go on that you have something more people. And then I think we still have the fishermen and the crabbers. You know, if there's a more easy access for people in a boat to moor somewhere and walk up to a store or something, I imagine that. I think it'd be a little bit more than we have today, but that kind of remains to be seen. I'd really hope that people aren't driving to the bridge and standing on it as much as coming from town and connecting, because that was part of the reason for this, is let's connect our commercial and our historic and our arts districts. So, you know, that's an important thing.
Edie, how about lighting on the bridge?
I think if we did any lighting on the bridge, it would be foot lighting, just along the bottom of the bridge. I saw one comment in the things that we just got on Saturday. Someone wanted to make sure the lights were no higher than 4 feet, but I'm worried that there'd be a lot of vandalism with that. It's amazing what people, especially kids, like to do with breaking things. And pedestrian lighting is lower than like the street lights we have out here, and that's what we're advocating for, is a solar downlight that's, I think,
the trail have to be
height is 8
illuminated
feet.
too? The trail have to be illuminated?
I think it would be on a timer, so that it, you know, I mean, it could be very pretty to walk there in the evening, but I think we could get it to turn off at 10 o'clock or whatever people want it to be at. So that's, you know. One thing, we did talk with Ed Adante, who's the public works person, and he looked at our drawings and said, well, where you have that little fishing pier thing, you should definitely have a light there, because if kids start to congregate down there, cops can drive by and see it right away as soon as there's a light there. So, you know, I mean, I think it's a good idea to let kids be there. It's very open. It's not like Watch Rock, which you have to walk, you know, 15 minutes before you see they're fishing, but it is a very open, visible area. So I think it, you know, when I was a kid, we used to go to McCullough Farm and hang out. You know, I mean, that was where we would go, you know. You needed somewhere to go as a teenager, and, you know, I think that's the reality of life. You know, what did you do when you were a teenager, you know? But
Do you have any as you dream of what Old Lyme should look like, what would you envision down the road in terms of the integration of the historic district into Halls Road? Or is it, I mean, do you view them as two separate zones? You've said today that you favor taking account of, let's say, the style of signs used at the museum so that you don't get a jarring contrast between what's in the district and what's down this trail. But this is, I guess, an open-ended question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest open-end is that there's no change in zoning right now, so that you couldn't do anything there, and you couldn't recommend anything. You couldn't make any changes. Once someone starts to want to build something, you can't do anything about it.
Right.
Basically, you can have gas stations, you can have, convenience stores, you can have all kinds of stuff that's just there. You have no say over what they would look like. The design review committee looks at all these elements that are part of Lime Street. I did all the drawings that are in the walking tour. So these are all, these are all the buildings you guys already know quite well, I'm sure. And they're classic old Lyme style buildings, and they're not all the same architecture, but they fit in town nicely. I mean, so these are elements that are examples in our design review. These are other examples that exist in other towns. Things right up along the road. And then we have, doorways and stuff. And then we also have a section back here that are things that are not acceptable. Because that's another part of the issue. You can't just say what you want and not help people understand what not to do. So these are, the cookie cutter housing, it's not what we want. We're not looking for that. And actually, before you leave today, there's a couple of drawings up at the top of this board over here where I actually took some of the building styles like this and turned them into a bigger commercial type setting of a building that are like 2.5 stories high. And that's my vision, if you're asking me personally what my vision is. But I think, what happens and what you have for a vision is not always the same.
I guess part of my question, and I wasn't very clear because I haven't had my third cup of coffee, but do you think there should be changes in the historic district itself that would help to kind of create an integrated sense of community?
Well, I have to say, when I was a kid, we all shopped down here at Spencer's and hardware store and the post office and all that. I think it's unfortunate there's not still some commercial stuff there that are besides art galleries and but that's my own personal feeling.
The chocolate shell.
What the historic district could do to become more integrated with the commercial zone, is that what you're talking about?
Well, it's an open-ended question. I mean, I think, as you know, the historic district now accepts home businesses. Lily Tile was
Lily Tile was a great addition. Yep.
We recognize that existing businesses that were here at the start of the historic district are grandfathered.
Yep.
I think the historic district is primarily residential, but I'm just asking for your thoughts. I gather it's nothing that HRIC has really focused on. Is that a fair statement? Focused on an integrated vision for all?
I think the idea of Halls Road in terms of things beyond safe sidewalks is, the idea is we're in a change in what retail is doing in this day and age because of the internet. And, what made Lime Street thrive was the interactive mixed use, it was living and shopping and businesses all on one street that people enjoyed using. Getting back to that for Halls Road is something that, because of the lack of people buying things besides services in a bricks and mortar setting, we need to mix living and shopping in the same area, and that's what's driving this mixed-use idea for a townscape as opposed to a strip mall. So I don't see that we have any vision for what will happen in the historic district, because it's pretty much locked down as an historic-only district. It's not going to change. You're not going to have, more than maybe a home business. You're not going to have a restaurant down here. There's restrictions to doing that, especially down, I know I've heard people say, wouldn't it be great if the Boxwood had a restaurant in it? I feel like,
Used to.
how lovely.
Used to.
Yeah, right. So those kinds of things would be nice, but it's because we're so focused on one thing and trying to make it feel more like Old Lyme, we kind of let you guys, you guys are taking care of this side of the boat. But we really want to connect to it. We want to connect to the art district. We want to connect to the historic district.
With respect to current thoughts and plans about housing, how many people would you guess would be
Living
accommodated in new
If you could even
apartments?
get 60 residential units over there, I'd be amazed.
Right.
I think we have a huge pent-up demand for small apartment-style living for a lot of our older people and younger people who can't really afford to buy a house when they first move here. So, but the issues of septic will contain how many millions of units you're going to put in anywhere, and we've got height restrictions, but this is all only if that overlay district is passed. But I don't believe you're going to see 100 units somewhere unless someone else changes zoning some other way. But you might get 20 apartments above a bunch of buildings that are retail on the first floor. But you're not going to get 80. It's just not going to happen. There's no physical way you could make that happen. So, it's between all the different restrictions and stuff. I don't see this as this big, amazing, giant building complex of 4-story buildings. We're only allowed to be 2.5 to slightly over. So that's probably not going to happen.
And my final question is, and back to an aspect of timetable, when do you anticipate going back to zoning with respect to the overlay district plans?
Well, we're running this thing about the bridge to the end of October, and that's taken up a lot of bandwidth from getting that organized. If we were to reapply, the way that the applications work is you reapply, then it goes to planning. First you get the Board of Selectmen to approve the changes that you're suggesting for the new overlay. So there are changes in our new overlay based on all the comments and requests, putting in some affordable housing, other things, building lengths and stuff like that. So we've tweaked the original thing that we had turned down. So you talk to the BOS for approval to want to submit it because it's coming from the town, not from Halls Road. It's just a committee. Then it goes to zoning. Then zoning passes it on to planning, and we will make sure that we have an opportunity to present that, which we didn't last time. We didn't get to show them anything about it. It just was confusing, and they had questions that people didn't have answers to. From there, so 1 month you can send in your application, then you wait another month before you can present that application, and then there's another month, theoretically, that you get a vote on it. It took us 7 months to get that last process to happen. It's got changed and whatever.
So when do you anticipate you'd have the board okay to submit to zoning?
I think we're practically ready to go. I mean, we still need to bring it to our committee, and show our own committee, then to the Board of Selectmen. So, if we were to apply in November, maybe, that would be December, January. If we didn't get it till December, and I think it's August that the zoning commission doesn't meet, so we do it in December and get it through by February. Then the other problem is you got lots of people on vacation, so going south. So I'm becoming more educated about the process. But it's at least a 3-month process, depending on when we apply. So if we passed our October meeting with our commission, so with our committee. So if we get it in November, I'd be surprised.
Any other questions?
Edie, back to the bridge. Have you met with Gateway regarding their dark skies? Because that's something that we talk a lot about lighting in this district and wetlands.
Have we talked with what?
Gateway regarding the bridge and the whole dark sky movement of lighting on the bridge.
We're definitely putting down lighting. We're not going to have big glowy things that are lighting up the sky. No matter who we talk to, we're not doing that. So we won't have...
You won't have any involvement with Gateway then?
Gateway would be something that when we're looking for permits, we would talk with them. So until we have a final design, you can't go permitting that. So. And
then how about wetlands?
Inland wetlands, we've talked with the commissioner about that, and the Kim Barrows upstairs, and Kim Groves. I guess Kim Barrows left, but Kim Groves is aware of what we're doing. She doesn't think it's going to be a big problem. We had our wetlands expert talk with her. So again, all these things. You don't get permits for any of these things till you're ready with a real design, because it's just a waste of time.
For wetlands, and it was just...
We've talked with Kim Groves, she's the inspector for them, I guess. So,
have you thought about? Have you looked into, beyond just talking to Gateway, the Dark Sky Initiatives, which has guideline not only just about downlighting, but about intensity of lighting and lighting? I don't even know the term.
Get a real design. I think when we get a full design ready to go, we'll be able to discuss the types of lighting options. We hope to make it a solar option, because then we don't have to do hard wiring through that space. And I think there's plenty of understanding that we're not trying to light up. You only put pedestrian lighting every 100 feet. It's not like every 6 feet you're going to have another light. It's pretty broad space between things. It's really just to see some light ahead of you. So.
Right.
And what the kind of lighting happens when the DOT goes into it. We've asked for pedestrian level lighting. That's going to be their jurisdiction again. So.
Anything else? We really appreciate you coming in.
Well, I appreciate your involvement too. I think it's really important that we all are working on the same page and know what we're doing together, because it's a good idea.
I know this has been a long haul.
Well, not that I expected to, but here I am. But okay, well, thanks a lot for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. New and ongoing business. At the tail end of the special meeting, who was left? Ed, Deb, Deanie, and I walked down to look at the sign, the Ludington marker sign, and our consensus was that the current location is too far out from the property, and also the property is being sold. So the thought was to remove the sign when the new owners come in, talk to them about possibly putting the sign inside their property, which is where it really belongs, because that is the Ludington house. But even without, if they don't agree to that, having it a lot closer to the house and sort of back under or near a big tree that's at their fence, and not just out, not clearly identifiable as the Ludington house. So that seems to be our plan of attack for now. HDC approval, noting the need for HDC approval of town department forms. Deanie has talked to, where's my other yellow page here? Deanie has talked to Mark Whalen and Eric Knapp and Kim, and the signs, she needs to double check all of the forms, but the signs, the main forms certainly have added a reference to the need for HDC approval before their zoning or building approval. Mark, who's associated with building, this is, according to Deanie, very much on his radar. It's certainly on Eric's radar. So I think we've made progress, and it's just a matter of double checking the forms to see if anything had fallen through the cracks. Sign policy, as we discussed, we'll have a special meeting at 9 a.m. on March 23rd, Monday. October. Let's hope this is not still going on in March. And lighting policy, as we review our different policies, that may well be next on our discussion list. There are references to lighting with respect to signage and that will come up in our discussion of signing policies. The other new business of note is that, Martha, you've talked with Katie Huffman about the new statute. Do you want to give an update on where that stands?
Oh, yes.
At the library?
Right. They will submit an application for the November meeting.
C of A application.
Yeah.
Right, so
yeah, they initially thought that she was told that it was outside the historic district when it was put in, but then she actually went out and measured, and she said, yeah, it's within the historic district. So.
You could have told her, but anyway. Okay.
It's a nice statue, but...
Yes, still. Yeah, and at some point we should take another look at our sculpture policy, I suppose, but that's down the road. Any other new business?
Last week, when we were out doing our surveying, we saw the tree warden put a sign up on a black walnut on one lime tree. And the more I thought about it, and I talked to a few other people are a little outraged that it's going to be removed when there's been so much on Ferry Road for trees that look like they're half dead anyways, of the quick removal of, or the potential quick removal of a very healthy tree that's in the historic district that really doesn't pose any more public safety than the sidewalks on Ferry Road that are like this. So I'm just wondering if the historic district ever
What's
taken
the address on that?
It's right across
One
from the
Line Street.
church. Across the
Okay,
street.
It's
Right on the corner of
It's a
McCarty.
healthy black walnut that the tree warden, because he happened to just post up the sign, and I said, what is going on? And we went over and had a conversation with him, and he said that someone claimed that the walnut cracked their windshield, which your windshield can get cracked anywhere. I have a cracked windshield. I don't know how it happened. And that the owner called them and said that the black walnuts, are all over, and, people walk on the sidewalk. Well, people walk on Ferry Road.
Well, there's chestnuts, there's apples.
So
On the
I'm
sidewalk.
wondering, I'm rethinking if I want to call the tree warden and say, really? It's a beautiful, healthy black walnut. They're probably self-sowed. Somebody probably didn't plant it, but still. So have we ever made a stand as historic district?
Martha, do you recall anything about the HCC taking positions with respect to trees or
Save
tree
tree.
removal?
Well, if it's a town tree,
There's question that it's,
the tree.
Close to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I would send an email to the tree commission.
okay. I just met her the other day. What was her name? I can't remember.
Joanne.
Joanne, okay.
My sense, Deb, is it's probably not an HDC matter. I mean, our jurisdiction is over man-made structures. Sidewalk signs, buildings,
Okay.
et
So
cetera.
I'll reach out to Joanne.
And we, as you know, we do attach conditions with respect sometimes to plantings as screening.
Right,
But
right.
my sense is it's better if you and other concerned citizens
Yes,
pursue
no
the
problem,
matter.
No problem, because I just met Joanne last week, so I'll reach out to her.
Yeah. Any other new business or other ongoing business? I'm just so delighted.
I know, it's 10:30.
It's not really early, but it's less than an hour and a half.
Better than 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Ed, second. Deb? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? No abstentions? Thank you.
See you on the 23rd.
See you on the 23rd